All right, guys, today we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing rational numbers. We're doing this before adding and subtracting rational numbers simply because it's easier. So it says good news, and this is great news. All the rules you've learned still apply for two things: fractions let's say oh my goodness, that's such a skinny pen. So all the things you've learned about integers, why is it so skinny? Hang on. Goodness. And everything you've learned about fractions, there we go, and decimals still work. So all of the things that you've done to multiply and divide fractions and decimals, you're going to keep doing. But then you're going to keep in mind that the answer is going to be positive or negative based on the rules we learned for integers. All right, so let's give this first one a shot. Well, first of all, remember that if we have the same signs, this goes for multiplying or dividing, the answer is positive. And then if we have different signs, the answer is always negative. So actually, before I even start any of the problems on this page, I could go through and just say if the answer is positive or negative. Look at number 1, negative times negative. My answer is going to be positive. Number 2, negative divided by a positive. The answer is negative. Number 3, this one is actually going to be a negative times a negative times a negative, isn't it? So a negative times a negative, the first two is going to make it positive, and then that positive times the third negative is going to make it negative. For number 4, I have a negative divided by a negative, so my answer is positive. Number 5, a negative and a positive multiplied is a negative. Number 6, a negative times a positive is a negative. Number 7, a positive times a negative is a negative. And number 8, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So I already figured out what sign the answer is going to be for all of these. The actual multiplying or dividing is the same thing that you learned in elementary school. The only thing that's new is whether the answer is positive or negative. So for number 1, let's multiply these two. So we have 6 times 5 is 30, and then 5 times 0 is 0, plus 3, and then 15, and then we're going to put a 0 down here. We have 24, 4 times 0 is 0 plus 2, 12, add them together. And remember, how to figure out where to put the decimal in your answer depends on how many places are behind decimals in the problem. 1, 2, 3, so we're going to put it 3 places over here. So my answer is going to be positive 13.77. For the next one, let's get another color here. I'm going to divide 6 into 12.3. 6 goes into 12 twice. So we'll bring down the 3. It does not go into 3, but if we put another 0 there, it's going to go in 5 times. And my answer is negative because I had that negative divided by a positive. For this next one, I'm going to have negative 0.4 times itself 3 times. So the first time, 0.4 times 0.4, we get 16, and we put that decimal 2 places over. I'm going to take that 16 times the third 0.4. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 1 plus 2 is 6. And then, this had a decimal there, sorry. So I need to put the decimal 3 places over. So since there aren't enough places, I need to add a 0. So it's 0.064, but it's negative because I had a negative times a negative times a negative. And anytime you have an odd number of negatives that you're multiplying, the answer is going to be negative. For the fraction examples, we're going to take that first one, multiply it by the reciprocal of the second one. You can see I moved that negative, but it doesn't matter where you put the negative sign. It can be in the numerator, the denominator, or even with the fraction bar. I always put it in the numerator. It's just easier for me to keep track of. I'm going to look for places where I can cross cancel. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 15 3 times, 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. So I have like -1 times -3, which is +3, and then 1 times 4 is 4. But I know my answer is going to be negative anyways because I have a negative divided by a negative, and anytime the signs are the same, the answer is positive. All like heavy breathing, and are the dogs, and that little tiny like tick-tacky sound is their little nails on the wood floor. Because I'm doing this from home. So the next problem is -3/4 times 20 over 21. We're going to look for things we can cross cancel. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 25 times, 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 21 7 times. So I'm going to get -5/7. Really, that numerator problem is -1 times +5, which gives me the -5, and then +1 times +7 in the denominator. But I already knew my answer was going to be negative because I established that before I even started the problem. For this example, I have -10 over 11 times 33/15, all kinds of cross-canceling happening here. 11 goes into 11 once and into 33 3 times. 5 goes into 10 twice and into 15 3 times. So I have -2 times 3 is -6. And then I have 1 times 3 is 3. And I'm sounding confused because I'm thinking, why do I still have simplifying to do at the end? Well, the reason is because this fraction right here wasn't simplified to begin with, huh? You could have divided the numerator and the denominator by 3 before you even started if you want to. As long as your answer is in the most simplified form, it's fine. And we already knew that this was going to be a negative answer because I had a negative times a positive. All right, quick refresher on mixed numbers. Let's change these to improper fractions first. So 3 times 5 is 15, plus 3 is 18. And then 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. We keep the denominators the same. This is the negative, but I already know my answer is going to be negative. So let me find ways that I can cross cancel. 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 18 9 times. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So 9 times -5 is -45. 1 times 2 is 2. I like this answer. It's totally fine to leave it improper, or if you want to, you can say -22.5. I would accept either one of those as a correct answer. And lastly, let's change these to improper. So 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2 is 23. Keep the denominator the same. If it's a negative mixed number, it's also a negative improper fraction. And we're going to divide, so that means, I don't know why it said that, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal and make it -9/2. Again, if it's -2/9, the reciprocal is -9/2. You can just keep that negative up there in the numerator. It doesn't stay with the 2, it stays with the fraction. Let's look for places where I can cross cancel. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 9 3 times. So -23 times 3 gives us -69, and 1 times 2 is 2. I cannot simplify that any smaller, but I can make it like negative, what would that be, 34.5. And I would accept either answer because they're both in simplest form. And we know, oh wait, it's actually positive. Huh? It's positive. And you know why I caught my mistake? Because before I even started the problem, I wrote down that the answer was going to be positive. So that helped me remember to double check that I have the right sign on the answer. Thanks for watching.